right, you're going to have to be awake out there today. We appreciate you folks coming in this afternoon. We're going to get started. This will be a session on recruiting. Our object is to share a little bit of information with you that we have, and we would certainly like to get, or we're going to need to get your input, feedback. We're all going to talk to you for a few minutes, and we sure would like for you to make note in your mind, if not jot down anything that we say that you might disagree with. That would be great. We'd like for you to get up and tell us, okay? Please do not hold back. We need your input. We want your help. So many times I've seen people sit through a session and never say a word, and they get right outside that door and some of the most interesting stuff in the world comes out, okay? So please share it with us today and get up and talk about it. And like I said, our object is to come up with some ways that we can improve the recruiting situation all over the place for new square dancers. I'm sure most of you were in the general session this morning. I had people hold up their hands. One gentleman said he had over 20 squares in class, and I specifically invited him. Well, he's not here right now. Maybe he'll come in a little later on. So anyway, I'd like to know what he's doing right, because something's right. I don't know where he is, but we'll find him. We'd like to talk to him. He's out recruiting right now. He's out on the street. That's good. Okay, we're going to have on the panel today, we have Mr. Buck Fish from Lansdale, Pennsylvania. Glad to have him here with us. Mr. Glenn Matthew from Hughesville, Pennsylvania. And I'm Darryl McMillan from Panama City, Florida. So we're going to start off, like I said, with a few minutes talk by each one of us, some of the information we've gathered, and then we'll have an open discussion about the entire thing. If you would like to ask a question or make a statement or what have you, we ask you please come up back to the microphone, and if there's more than one person at the microphone, that's fine. Just wait in line, and we'll call on you, and you can speak over the mic and ask your questions, okay? So we'll start off right now with Mr. Glenn Matthew from Hughesville, Pennsylvania.
This is a new one for me. Standing in front of square dancers is fine. Standing in front of callers is difficult. Anyhow, first thing I'd like to say is, at the general meeting this morning, Cal Golden got up and said, let's start dwelling on the positive things and stop dwelling on the negative things. If you have something negative that happened, forget it. It was not good. That's the way I feel about it. If it didn't work, we don't want to know about it. We want to know what did work. That's the approach that I'm going to take. First off, up here in the front, I have some flyers. I have some ideas that we have done that have worked very successful. This year, I have 60 new beginners in my class. I started with 80, and over the time, I lost 20 people. But we're still retaining about 60, so I'm pleased with that. One of the things that we did right off the bat that was very, very successful this year is, it's difficult for everybody to see this, but we gave everybody a ticket. One of the things that we do a lot of when we recruit our new people is demonstrations. Lots of demonstrations. We go to malls, carnivals, parades, and the bottom line is, when I do all this stuff, it's free. I do it for free. It comes back to me. It obviously comes back to me. The first 3 weeks of our lessons are open. Anybody that wants to come in can come in. We saw 125 new people. Out of the 125, I retained 80. A lot of people are just coming out to see what it's all about. Some of them, the interested ones stayed, and then I lost a few after that. But the bottom line was, we get out. We've been involved in some big, big parades. We were involved in the Gimbals Thanksgiving Day Parade in Philadelphia. Gimbals went out and bought us a float. How it worked out, I don't know. I guess just perseverance, constantly going back to them. We're interested, and they came through for us. The float that they bought for us cost them $6,000. Cost them $6,000. Didn't cost us anything. And we got people out of that parade also. One of the things that I think was quoted to me from a non-dancer, a person that sells Western clothes, said to me, square dancing seems to be the best kept secret in the world. Okay? We've got to go out and do something about it. We've got to go to these malls. The malls are dragging people in. They're not going to pay you, but it's going to come back to you if you're willing to do that. This particular gentleman also said to me, he said, when we promote square dancing, this is coming from a non-square dancer, he said, when we promote square dancing, we don't promote it on its fun. We promote it on it's an inexpensive night out. Who cares if it's an inexpensive night out? Okay, you're coming because it's fun, not because it's inexpensive. If it's fun and inexpensive, then that's a positive thing. I have to review my notes as I go. We do a lot of advertising. Right up front here, there's a lot of blank flyers. I pulled some of them out. Picture of a man have a deck of cards. You can do something with anything. Take a picture out of a magazine, cut it out. If a flyer is interesting, somebody's going to pick it up and say, "What's that?" They're going to want to read it. If it's all typed out for when you advertise for your new people, do something to make them want to look at that flyer. Do something to make them want to come and see what it's all about. That's one of the things that we've done. I also have done a lot with using the newer music. I don't use a lot of the older music. I use the music that people can relate to. Types of music, some of the popular tunes. People can sing along with it. That's the types of music, apparently the types of music that people like. We have a club-run club. Some areas, club-run clubs are not successful. Our area happens to be very successful. Well, I can't say our area. My club is very successful being club-run. They do all the work. They call me on the phone and they say, "We have a demo in such and such a place. Can you be there?" And there's no question about it. I will be there, whether I can be there, and I'll make arrangements to be there. If it was my day to do whatever I wanted to do, that's it. I go to that demo because that's going to come back to me. I feel that if you do a demonstration and you pick up one couple, then it was successful. Because most likely that one couple is going to see one of their friends and say, "Well, we really don't want to go by ourselves, but would you go with us?" And there's a good possibility that one couple is going to bring another couple with them. The other thing basically is sell the square dancing on its own merit. Don't sell square dancing on any other thing except that it's a lot of fun. You enjoy calling, and if you enjoy calling, project that to them and let them know that you do enjoy calling. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of flyers up here in the front. You're willing to take anything you want, take it back to your clubs. I'd like to hear your ideas. There is also, I believe, something that you can get out of the Square Dance magazine where you can get figures. Square dance figures to start a jamboree. I also have one here. When we graduated our class, this is also up here in the front. Make your graduates feel like they're important. Don't graduate them and then say, "Well, there's really no place for you to dance, and our club level's too high for you." Make them feel important. We have tried, one of the things that we have tried in our area that has not become real successful, but we're still working at it, is a mainstream club. Our club is plus. We tried a mainstream club. We're struggling, but we're still pushing at it, trying to make it work. That's another possibility. But this one was the best flyer that we have come up with since the club has been in existence. We've been in existence 5 years. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, wow, they really do think that the class is important. And that's the thing. Also, I think it's very important to make your class active within the class itself right away. Let them do refreshments. Let somebody run the 50-50 or whatever you do in your club. Get those people involved right away. If they're involved right away, they're more apt to stay with you when it's over, when the classes are over. They're more apt to stay with you. Basically, my feeling is a lot of the callers that I talk to that won't go out and do demos. It's not the club's responsibility. If you want those class people, go out and get them. You are the salesman. You are the expert. Go out and get those people. They're there. Rural areas or not, it doesn't matter. They're there. You just have to go get them. You may have to go a little further if it's a rural area, but the people are there. You just have to work at it and go get them. Basically, that's my presentation, and we'll open it to questions when we're done.
Thank you, Glenn. And now we'll have Mr. Buck Fish from Lansdale, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Darryl. I want to talk about, in the beginning, simply because our session is supposed to be successful methods of recruiting. To give you a little bit of background, I am not one of the younger callers. I've been around a couple of years, a couple of times, and more. And I fell into that very bad rut of not having to recruit because our classes were so big that the following year the people brought their friends and we had another big class. Through an unfortunate illness for a couple of years, I was out of teaching for 2 years. When I come back, we did the usual thing. We had lost our nucleus. And I found out that I had to do something about it. Now, you all know that previous year's class is a good source of new dancers. I think the second best source is demos, as Glenn has mentioned. But I tried to go a little bit further. My background in business was simply sales management, and I thought, how can I approach this that I can do just a little bit better at a demo? Well, as you all know, you go out, you do demo, you can get your club members to come, they dress up nice and pretty, and people love it. You hand out flyers, and you never know whether you're going to get anybody or not. So I developed what I called my 5-contact program. If we had 4 squares at a demo at a mall, I asked 2 of them not to dance. We alternated, of course. Everybody didn't do everything at one time. And I asked 2 squares in their square dress clothing to stay outside in the audience with a flyer. And we also gave them some 3x5 index cards. And I know you're going to have to pass out a lot of flyers. As people go by, you hand it out and you hope. But if you can stop anyone and ask them, I have some more information that I would like you to get. Would you give me your name and address? Now, if anyone in here is involved in sales, you know that you hear no more than yes. And you hear no more than yes in this. However, every no really should be a stepping stone because you're going to get a certain amount of yeses along the line. So you don't consider a no as a failure. You consider, I'll get the next one. So anyhow, when we obtain the person's name and address, we let a couple days, and each angel took care of his own. It wasn't a club burden. Each one of them agreed to take care of their own. About 2, 3, 4 days later, they mailed them another flyer with all the information repeated about a free jamboree and so forth and so on. And that was the second contact. The first was when they talked to them long enough to get their name and address, if they could. The second one was when they sent them a second flyer in the mail as a reminder. The third reminder, we drew a map of where the class was going to be. And really, while it was a helpful thing, it was another chance for that person to send this probable new recruit another little memo. And you'd send them a note, a reminder, and a map, and so forth and so on. The fourth contact, we asked them to make a telephone call. And the telephone call was mainly to talk about all the health benefits of square dancing and all the other side benefits of it. And offer, again, do you want me to pick you up? Are you going to be able to find the place? Reminder of the starting time. But really what they were doing is not volunteer that information. It was the fourth contact they were making with that same person again. Then, of course, the fifth contact is at the jamboree. By that time, they had known the people. They'd talked to them on the phone, written a couple letters, and some of them went a little further, called a couple times. We always provide them with something new to mail so that they could mail it to them as an interesting fact about square dancing. By the time the jamboree came along, they sought out their own individual little recruits and, of course, offered to dance with them and things of that nature. But the frequency of the contact seemed to be the key. The fact that we contacted an individual who gave us 10 seconds to give his name and address. We contacted him 5 different times. And in 1 hour of a demo, we actually recruited for a class 42 dancers. Now, our class is going on now, and of course we have some other outside, and it got up to around 50 people. But 42 of them actually came from one single demo, but followed with this 5-contact situation. It was not a burden on the club. Each angel seemed to take it personally that they were going to do the mailing and the calling and so forth and so on. And I think it is a big difference than just go out and do a demo, and I don't care if you pass out 1,000 flyers. You don't know whether they're going to be read. You don't know whether anybody's going to do anything about it. But if they think you have enough interest in them to telephone them, to send them additional information, they finally get a little bit more interested. And whether they come for the first time just because somebody used the word badgering, it's really not badgering because you offer it in a pretext of that you're trying to do them a favor. And we have found, as I said, we came back this year to get up to our 50, but 42 of them actually came from one demo. 4 squares, myself doing the calling. So I think that demos are still a good thing to do. I know Glenn does a lot of the parades and so forth. He only does it now because he's younger than I am. I did the Mummers Day Parade and a few others around Philadelphia and everything, but somehow or other the old knees don't want to go that long. And he's a young boy. You can tell by all that hair. But I feel that it is a good thing. Now, this kind of might relate to another committee, but they talked about national recruiting. I think national recruiting, whether you all think of television, don't have to be television, it can be many other means, but I think we ought to try to sell in a new direction. We've talked about the fun of square dancing. We've talked about many things about the sociability. But what is one of the hottest things today? Health spas, exercise machines. Bring your pulse rate up to 120, then rest and let it go down to 80 again. I know all that because my reason I missed 2 years, I had open heart surgery, and I had to go through all that. It is, I think, whether it be a television show, don't feature the dancers. Have one who is an authority figure, like a doctor in a white coat telling you how to take the tartar off your teeth. I think he should be in there pitching the health of square dancing, what it does. And I'd like to see also in print. I have 2 things here. One of them says a night of square dancing is worth 4 miles, and another says a night of square dancing is worth 8 miles of jogging. I don't know which is true. I would like to see us spend some money, get into a survey with someone who would be willing to really look into this, and I'm talking about a medical man, where we would have a sheet, I guess you've all seen this national one's put out with a few health factors on it and so forth, where we could have some real authoritative statements talking about the health benefits of square dancing. Once we get them there, we can teach them that it's fun. We can teach them it's a good time, good social night. We can even teach them it's an inexpensive way of having some recreation. But what we've tried to sell all these things, what would be the best thing to do would be to sell the health program and work the others in secondarily. I'm talking about where you're getting a one-shot, whether a guy is picking up a flyer and reading it, whether he happens to catch a TV on some of the channels that might run these things. But sell that point, and then let the callers and the dancers let them know after they come that it's fun. But if we actually, what happens, gets me started on this, as a hall where we teach the class, we have an aerobic class that's there for 3/4 an hour right before. We have to wait for the girls to get out so that we can move in with our square dance equipment. And I got to talking to the instructor and so forth, and what the different purposes of their different dances are with the different timing, different speed, different endurance. And it all revolved around not only muscle conditioning, but it revolved around your pulse rate, to the point whereby that they will have a fast one with the purpose of trying to bring you up to, say, 120 or something like that, and then they will actually have maybe a sit-down rest or maybe a slower dance to let that pulse rate go down. And I think we have all that wrapped up in square dancing, and I think it's another angle we ought to try to sell. The others will come along. The only other thing I want to touch on, because it has been a success story, we had 4 clubs in our area this year that for the past 3 years had not been able to get a class together. 1 square, 2 squares, and had to disband. Many of you I know have tried probably multiple core classes, maybe you haven't. But we went about it a different way and called it a square dance school. We had 4 clubs participating and 4 callers alternating, teaching the class. We took the CALLERLAB teaching order and you sign your initials in the back of the next thing in line that you teach. And this has been going very successfully. Now, I'll be the first one to say that it's not as good as a caller calling for his own club and his own class. That's ideal. But we're going to put another 50 dancers into the square dance picture where these 4 clubs would have done nothing for this year. So at least. Now, we developed several little rules as we went along. All the different clubs are allowed to bring their own angels to talk about their club and help out. They bring their banners. One club would invite the class to a Christmas dinner dance. Another club brings them to an ice cream social at the square dance. In other words, they're advertising their own individual little clubs. And I'm not suggesting this as a way to go other than a saving of if you were going nowhere at all. In other words, if your club was one of the ones that were just not going to be able to get a class together, no matter whether you had a free hall and the caller was willing to do it for practically nothing, these clubs are now working together, and I think they have a deeper understanding of each other. But what is more important, they're going to create some new dancers where there would have been nothing. So if you've tried that road and kind of failed, I suggest you take another look at it, and we're glad to answer any questions of how we set it up. We never had any formal rules and regulations. It was just sort of a, let's have a meeting, talk it over, and we come up with the different arrangements. But as we go along, we found out there were certain things. For instance, each caller is entitled to run a workshop if he wants to after the classes. But we had a certain date where he could only advertise that, which was April the 3rd or something like that, where he could then advertise that he was going to run a workshop if he wanted to on his own. But so little rules like that worked out. But the main thing is, I'm trying to say, here have been 4 clubs with 0 dancers. They at least are putting about 50 new dancers into the square dance picture. So with our 5-point contacts through demos, and then in a jam, going into a caller school with multiple callers and multiple clubs participating, and maybe a little bit of a change in any kind of national advertising, be it print or be it in a form of TV or whatever it might be, that we try a new angle on the advertising portion of square dancing. The angle being that we're the healthiest thing going for them. Better than aerobics, better than jogging, better than exercising machines in the spas and so forth and so on. Hopefully, if we get into the national advertising question in another meeting, we can get the idea across that maybe now's the time for a change. Maybe now's the time to look at it a little bit differently and sell it in a little bit different manner. I don't think we can lose. You could always have a couple of programs and come back and repeat things the old way if you want to, but I think the health program is one way to go also. So that's the 3 points. I'm at the 5 contacts, the national advertising, and also the caller's school or the class school, square dance school, whereby different clubs get together and take a little bit of success rather than a failure. Thank you very much. Take it up.
Thank you, Buck. I sort of resent one of the remarks that Buck made there, though. He said something about young boy with lots of hair. Well, now, I'm a young boy. And, yeah, well, just for example, Craig, would you and Art stand up just a minute? Please, both of you stand up, face that way. I mean, you can look and tell hair is obviously a disease, right? Sit down, thank you. And I'm almost cured. I'm glad. Okay. What these 2 gentlemen have spoke about, I think if you listen real hard, you'll hear one comment that I got back from several questionnaires that I got out, and that is, if you're out actively recruiting, you most likely will get somebody. If you sit back and do nothing, the very few are going to come to you. Is that right? What do you think? Okay? We've been involved with the ad hoc committee for the last year, and we sent out a questionnaire to 30 or 40 callers around the country. Sorry if you didn't get one. We do appreciate all the people that did take the time to send back a letter or answer to the questionnaire. I'll share some of the results of the questionnaire with you just to see what these people thought all around the country, and I want your thoughts too. We'd like to know what works for you, and I'd like to, especially if you think what we're saying, something we say is not right or there's something better, please get up and say something, okay? In this questionnaire I set out, the first question or open essay type thing was, I put, please list anything you know of that works well to get new dancers into class. One guy is sort of amused. He put blackmail, but I didn't really put that down on my report. Is that how it works, John? No. Anyway, In our results that came back, we got many of the things that these gentlemen have mentioned before. Most of you that have been calling for a long time have been involved with this type of thing. The American Square Dance magazine has an entire packet of this material that they'd be glad to send to you. It has a list of 50 different ways to recruit, and by different ways it's talking about basically the same thing that these gentlemen were mentioning, and I just listed a few. This is not all of them, and that is just putting ads in newspapers, television spots, radio spots, posters around town, in stores, anywhere. The free tickets is a super idea. Flyers at any occasion where you can get people together. Exhibitions was one of the main type attractions to draw people in. A phone campaign. Get you a list of names and have your people call people. Billboards, like advertising billboards, banners across the street, direct mail outs to any addresses you can get. However, most people, not all, but most of the people that we questioned said that word of mouth was the most effective recruiting tool, and that is your friends going out and bringing somebody. Now, the key right there is going out and bringing somebody. I'll bet you every one of you have been involved with this. You talk to 20 people and say, oh, yeah, I'd love to square dance. We've got an open house. Going to be September the 17th. Please come. We'd like to have you. Yeah, I'll sure be there. How many of them going to show up? 1 out of 100, maybe? But it is effective if you go get these people and bring them to your class. One of the questionnaires I got back, people had put on an extensive campaign. They were working with 2 or 3 of the large grocery stores in town, and they had a little flyer about class stuck in every grocery bag that went out of the store for a couple of weeks. They had billboards, just everything you can mention. I'm sure they spent many, many dollars getting people. And when it all boiled down to whatever they had in their class, like 95% of them were there because somebody went and got them, brought them out. So I'm not saying that their other advertising was not effective, but it was not nearly as effective as going out and getting the people. Okay, from this questionnaire that I sent out, one of the things on it, I'm going to just mention 2 or 3 things here. One of my questions was, what do you think the general non-dancing public thinks of square dancing? That was one of my questions. Okay, and I have listed here 3 or 4 of the things that came back to me. 1, the general non-dancing public thinks square dancing is clogging, like they see on TV. You see a show and the commentator will say, okay, let's bring out our square dancers, and they have 3 or 4 girls out there clogging, or maybe a square out there clogging. So a lot of people, when you say square dancing, that's exactly what they think. Another case, square dancers, this is a thought that something that people think, square dancers are exhibition dancers, and what they're doing is way too difficult for me. Okay, now here's a point that falls back on us as callers. If you get you a good spot at a civic group or a church or a mall and you're doing a demonstration, and you get out there and you're a fantastic caller. You got the best dancers in the world, and you can do spin, chain the gears to a crossover, motivate 1.5 to a flip, back, cast a shadow. That's just great. That doesn't impress those dancers at all. They feel like, I could never learn that. That's just too fancy. So consequently, they're not interested in your classes. So there again, I'm getting sort of a different subject in a way, but it's judgment. You go out to make a demo, be sure that the people that are watching your demo know what you're doing, and make it so that they feel like they can do it with no problem. Okay, another thing that the general non-dancing public thinks, they think it's barn dancing. Still on a sawdust floor, and about every Saturday night's a drunk brawl. Have you ever run into that? Any of you ever run into that? Yeah. Okay, and it's hard to stand there and tell them it's not, because that's what they've thought all their life. That's one of the things they think. A lot of people think it's just for older retired people. Now, a lot of that has to do perhaps where you live. Down in South Florida where I live, I live in Florida. I don't live in South Florida, but in the southern part of Florida, there are many, many older retired people, and that's great. A lot of them square dance. But a lot of people think that's only people that square dance, the older retired people. Many people have a very negative attitude toward square dancing because they've talked to somebody that used to square dance but dropped out, and for whatever reason they dropped out. Perhaps we moved too fast for them. They were disgusted, or maybe there was a little clique that made them unhappy. You know what I'm saying. But people started classes. Maybe they just didn't like it. But anyway, a lot of people are very dissatisfied or have a negative attitude because some dissatisfied dancers talk to them. And another one that was very prevalent in my returns was it's a complete lack of knowledge. They don't know anything about it. They think this is something that people do in phys ed class and grammar school, and that's it. They really don't know what we're doing out here in the world. Okay, and the reason I mentioned all of these things, what the general public thinks of the non-square dance, of the square dance world, is my number 2 item that came out on my questionnaire was the image that people have of square dancing. This affects our recruiting very, very, very much. Okay, and what can we do about this type thing? I've heard dozens of people here, as well as on my questionnaire, suggest that we need a national media blitz of some kind. Not necessarily to recruit people into your class or my class, but to inform the general public as to what's going on. One of the men sent back a statement that I think ties in with what Buck said very well. We should choose on a motto. Now, this was just his idea, and it doesn't have to be this one, but he said we should choose a motto and really push this thing in front of everybody, and his motto was fun, fitness, and fellowship. Something like that, that people can relate to, and people think, hey, I'd really like to be a part of that, instead of, I'd never learn to do that. That's too bad. Okay, and on my questionnaire, back to the, I put here, I was interested because I hear so many people talk about the list. I've heard a lot of people say lately the list have hurt us. The Square Dance CALLERLAB lists have hurt us. I put in my questionnaire, do you think the lists have hurt our recruiting? All the people wrote back, no, because that hurts our retention sometimes perhaps, but it doesn't hurt our recruiting. That was most of the answers. And I don't feel like I made my question plain enough, because I really feel like, in a way, it has affected us like so. Our dancers are so good now, most that I see. The dancers dance so well, and they have been dancing for a lot longer than they used to be dancing. And if you have people that are dancing a strong plus, or easy plus, at least most of our people are, don't you agree it would take a person from scratch 1.5 to 2 years to be able to dance that level? Am I right? Okay. If you know that it's going to take 2 years of class for you to get your friend to come to a dance with you, why bother? I really feel that this is the attitude that most of our dancers have right now. Somebody agree or disagree? Some of you agree. Some of you say, yeah, okay. So, along with, I had 37 questionnaires sent back. And I may be wrong, but I think at least 95, 96% of them, every one of them included this. Our teaching time is too long. And so you might say, now what has that got to do with recruiting? It's just what I said. The teaching time is too long. If you're honest and upfront with your prospective class members and you say it's going to take you 41 weeks to learn to square dance, a lot of them are going to say, shoot, I'll just go over here and get a college degree. If I'm going to spend that much time and effort, why should I do that, So people are hesitant to sign up for that long a time to learn square dance. Okay, so I have 2 main points in my questionnaire that came back. In addition to, now let me back up a little bit. Same thing these gentlemen said about the exhibitions, the flyers, trying to get a mailing list, people's names, phone numbers, to send them cards, to call them. Those things are all very effective, and they're all very, very good to get people out in general to your particular club. But for the overall activity, I got 2 main topics, 2 main things back off my questionnaire. 1, we should reduce our class time. Make it where we can teach a class in, now there's nothing magic about this number, but 20, 25 weeks, no more than that. And the key point there is so we can get in more than 1 class per year. That make sense? Okay? If this is March, if I go home and I meet somebody and I talk them into taking square dance, and they say, yeah, I'm interested, I'll come to your square dance class. When is it? I said, well, it's in September. That's 6 months from now. And by then, they've got involved with bowling or something, and they're not really interested anymore. We don't have a product to sell today. And it's hard to sell somebody a car that they might get 6 months from now. So we need it so that we can have classes where we can start them 2 times a year, 3 times a year. Tell me a question, John. Need classes when we can start any time we want to. Well, I agree, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. Yes, sir. Agreed. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, if y'all want to talk, that's great. Come up to the mic.
Could the gentlemen who are speaking, could you please come up to the mic, please?
Okay, just a second. Thank you. Okay, this gentleman says unless you have your own hall, that would be very difficult, and I realize that's a problem. It certainly is. Anybody else? Come on to the mic and talk to us. Yes, sir.
I'm John Toth from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I enjoy listening to all these great ideas. And one of the ideas for passing out tickets is a good thing. One of the things that the clubs back home had used was passing out the tickets and giving a free party on it and say, come and join us on this. Again, it was only in September. He said, but handing it out to the person saying, this is a special ticket. It's worth $4. If you can't use it to me.
That's a good idea.
And then the other thing that was used in selling the idea instead of weeks, sell them on the 2 semesters. Say, well, how long does the class last? We can tell them 41 weeks or 35 weeks. Look at you and turn a deaf ear to you. You can say, well, it's only 2 semesters, up to the holidays, and after the holidays you graduate with a Bachelor of Square Dancing. Mention no weeks at all, just 2 semesters. And that's a good selling point, too, and it works.
Okay, very good.
I'll think about the other thing. Anybody else?
And what we're looking for, let me tell you now, we're going to keep record of what you people are saying, and this will be, I'm going to submit this to the board, and I'm going to tell you why. Let me mention this. I've heard the same stuff for 2 or 3 years. We got a recruiting problem, we got a dropout problem, all that. I want to see something done this week. Do you? Okay. What I want to know is what you want done. And I'm going to write it down, and it will go to the Board of Governors, okay, before we leave here.
Paul Molitor from Iowa. What we have found is after our demonstration is they are really fired up and ready to square dance. You got your classes starting in September. Figure out your second night. Post-date a check from that for half of the class. That way they have to come for 2 nights to get their check back. You can't cancel you can't cash the check until after the second night anyway, because it's post-dated to that date. So this is one way we have found, and it has worked out real good for us. Another thing that works for me is going 2 nights a week. You can get your classes done in fairly short time, and the distance between the once a week is a lot better. You don't have to spend near as much time explaining the definitions over and over again because they remember them a lot quicker.
Before you get away, you suggested 2 nights a week. Do you have? I'd like to ask, what are the ages of most of your people? Are these retired people? Are they all ages?
They're all ages.
All ages. And you teach them 2 nights a week?
2 nights a week.
Okay. Do you have a club dance those same nights or by any chance, or just class 2 nights?
This class is 2 nights a week.
Okay. And do you teach a club or have a club on another night, or do you?
Okay. The club dance is on a different night altogether. This is just 2 weeknights. We figure that when you went to school, you go to school 5 days a week. So why not, when you take a night school class, go 2 nights a week?
Okay, but you're really talking about 3 different nights a week.
Right.
Okay. That's the reason I asked that. Some of us would really have trouble coming up with another night. That's the only thing. That's great. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, I'm John Blessing from Denver, and I'm one of these people. You talk to people and they say, well, I did it in high school. I'm guilty of that because I teach in Inglewood High School in Denver. I have for the last 3 years 7 hours back-to-back for 3 days a week for 500 kids. And it's a captive audience. Your retention level's not real great. It's enjoyable. I've won 2 people over from it, even though I've been doing it for the last 3 years. An idea not my own. Dean Salveson from Denver came up with the idea for the Heart Dance, Heart Association, which goes along with what you mentioned earlier. One idea that he came up with I think is fantastic. Take your square dancers, take a square of square dancers in costume, and ask them for 1 hour a week on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Go door to door, knock on the door in costume, tell them I am a square dancer. We'd like to have you come and see our dance, and we're going to have lessons on such and such a night, and give them a flyer. Door to door, person to person contact. A flyer does no good at all if it isn't person to person contact. But I think square dancers in costume, meeting people so they realize we are a warm human being. We're not somebody dressed funny. I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a super idea, and I know Dean Salverson. Go ahead, John. Sorry. I know Dean Salverson, and along with passing out those flyers for the square dance, they also passed out literature from the Heart Fund, which I felt like should be good for the Heart Fund. but it also associated square dancers and square dancing with a beneficial activity such as helping the Heart Fund, which certainly wouldn't hurt at all. Yes, sir.
I'm Ed Ruddy from Connecticut. Well, there have been some fantastic ideas, I tell you. But one thing that this 2 lessons a week is something that has been bandied about in Connecticut at our Callers Association, but we've never done it. I'd like to talk to the gentleman that proposed that about your success. One thing we're trying to do up there is to keep the people active after the class, and we're trying a 2-level dance. And we're having one hall for our class or mainstream level, whatever they're up to, and the other for plus or whatever the club normally dances. We get 2 callers. And a lot of us are just pitching in our time for half the gate, whatever it happens to be, in order to get this thing rolling. And it's been worked by 2 clubs for about a month and a half, and it's beginning to snowball. We see it building. A lot of the people will go into the plus hall and come back over to the other side to have fun.
Sure.
Another thing that we're doing, too, we started this about 2 years ago, is we get 2 or 3 clubs in an area that have a mainstream dance once a quarter. Enough clubs so that you'll have a dance every week for the people who are just graduated. Because our problem up there are a lot of, quote, plus, unquote, clubs. And it's hard to get the new dancers assimilated into this, as you all know. And one of the solutions we found is to do that. And it seems to be working out quite well.
That sounds good. Let me ask a question of everybody. Yes, all right, go ahead, sir. Of everybody, he mentioned they're having a mainstream dance once a month. They have a lot of plus clubs. Do you people in general, and if you don't, hold up your hand, but do you people in general feel that the norm of square dancing right now is a soft plus? Yeah, right? Anybody completely disagree with that? What is soft plus? Okay, you disagree that the norm across the United States is soft plus? What do you think it is, sir?
Mainstream.
Okay.
I'm not saying labels. You asked me what the norm of dancing was.
Okay, as with reference to our levels, our level list.
Oh, okay. You're talking names now, not dancing?
No, I'm talking about if you go out and call an average dance, what kind of material are you expected to use in general? Now, unless they just say, now you stick to this, you stick to that, you stick to this. What I'm saying is it's mainstream, it's easy diamonds, it's flip the diamond with boys on the short points, it's relay the deuce in parallel ways with boys on the end, spin, chain the gears, and load the boat. Teacup chain. Is that right? A few others. That's what the normal dancing is across the United States. Is that right? Dance once a month. I think that's extremely good because we're running into a problem. If you graduate somebody mainstream, where can they go dance? That's one of our problems. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm Mike Callahan from the Rochester, New York area. A lot of us forget about into square dancing at some point. I have a club that meets on Thursday evenings, and up to last year, there was 3 years in a row they didn't have a class, and they were starting to feel the pinch. So they thought what they would do is offer a square dance refresher course, not a beginner's class. They called it a refresher course. And they got one enterprising retired person to go through the mailing list for the past 5 years of the club. And they found the people that hadn't been attending, and they sent out flyers, postcards, made the phone calls. And we dance on Thursday nights from 8 to 10:30. They set up this refresher course from 7 to 8 on the same night, Thursday night. They charged $1 a person. These people would come in, and they'd dance from 7 to 8, and they were also allowed to dance the first tip with the club, and I wouldn't use anything else that I had done that night in that first tip. And instead of having nobody, from January through June, we ran the refresher course, and we ended up with 12 couples. And that's, better than nobody. And that worked real well for them, and they were quite proud of that. So that might be an idea, to think of some of the people who have dropped out for health reasons or whatever, who would like to get back in at some point soon.
That's great. We should be able to come up from our clubs and people in our area. We should be able to come up with a lot of names and addresses of people like that. I've seen people had a dance. I thought it was cute. They called it a rusty nail dance for the people who had been out for a while. And I have to say these things when I think of them. They make me think of them. I saw a club somewhere. It might have been one of your towns. I don't know. It's so neat. All the clubs tried to get a class. So a few of them did. A lot of the clubs did not get enough people for class. After everybody had tried and they got through, this caller went around and he got the names and addresses of all the people that these people had their names, but they did not get a class. And he put together a real nice class from all the different clubs, the few people that they had that wanted classes but really couldn't get in. And his banner was the rear end of a set of blue jeans with a couple of dice with odd numbers, and he called it the odds and ends. I thought that was so cute. Had a real nice group. Odds and ends from the other clubs. Go ahead, ma'am.
In our area, We introduced square dancing. My husband and I introduced square dancing there back in 1960. Some of those original clubs are still very active. Then he passed away. In 1978, I started on a regular basis at the senior center. To go there, you must be 60 years of age. Now, I know that might not be, maybe I'm not supposed to talk about that.
You go right ahead.
But I started with no help, only myself. I had a good group, but we did not talk about lessons nor clubs. We talked about the mental exercise and the physical exercise. They had a good time. We worked on bingo waltz. Well, golly, it took quite a while to get through that the very first time. We do a couple of contras sometimes. We do easy squares. Then that was only 1 hour a week. In 82, we started 2 hours a week, the same day. Well, then in 84, 2 years ago, I had a class on Wednesday, 9 until 11 in the morning for new beginners. The other regular group could come and help. Fridays, they dance mainstream only. And I've introduced a few figures. Last year, we had our first graduation. I gave basic diplomas to the Wednesday people, and the people who had been coming since 78 received mainstream diplomas. They loved them. So we ordered badges. The director at the center helped us design them. They're very unique. And I might throw in one more little thing. Last year, they made a film of all the activities at our center. It's Mercy Center on Aging. It's connected with Mercyhurst College. The director and the assistant took that to California, and it was shown. In a 30-minute film, much was on square dancing. And I was so proud of those people, and they came back and told us how well it had been received. And there were people there from all over the country, in San Francisco. And that's basically, but don't forget word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Go get them.
Word of mouth that's the end.
That's
and
good.
They must leave the dance with a good feeling.
Right.
Okay?
Good point. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I can reach this thing. Will it come off of here? You forget about us short
That's
people. Two things. First of all, I want to comment on the 2 classes per week. We tried that a couple of years ago. We have a very small area. We have 4 callers and 6 clubs, so that gives you some idea of what we're working with. But we tried the twice-a-week thing, and we found it quite successful in quality. We only had 1 square, but they stuck with us the whole time. We started them in January after having our classes in September along that far. And we got them to the point where they graduated with the September class. We found that the retention rate was really great. They seemed to learn faster. We had, I'm not sure, we had young couples. I think we had 2 young couples and 2 older couples. One of them a retired couple. I think they're all still dancing. Aren't they, Fred? I believe they are. Another thing, the way we worked that, we worked it through our community schools. We had 2 nights a week. We used 3 callers who alternated so that one caller, we've only got 4 callers, so we're kind of scarce. But one caller was not tying up his time continuously. We just sort of worked out a schedule and gave each one whatever night he could work. It fostered a lot of cooperation amongst the clubs and amongst the callers, and we hope to do it again. We just haven't had time to get it organized and do it again. But that worked quite well. On the publicity, this past year, we did a similar thing with the free tickets. We printed free tickets and asked our dancers to pass these free tickets out for our fall roundup where we recruit. Our dancers, the tickets also had a door prize. We gave a door prize with the ticket as a little incentive to get the people to come.
You Cadillac?
Well,
something like that. Go ahead.
How we got the prizes was another interesting thing. We just asked our dancers to come up with items that could be used with prizes. For prizes, we said, look around your house. Find items that you have that you don't need, that are good items, that maybe you would have sold in a garage sale or something like that, but they're good enough that we can use them for prizes. And we came up with lots of prizes that way. But we also gave a pretty significant prize to the dancer who got people to our roundup. Who got the most people to our roundup. We gave them about a $50 gift certificate to the local square dance shop.
And you're saying an incentive to recruit.
That's right. And we had in our class 4 squares, and we just graduated them. We graduated, I'm not sure, but it was pretty close to that. Whereas the year before we'd had 2 squares, the other callers in the area had not quite as many squares. I think they both just had 1 square each, but we did essentially double our enrollment this year. So it is working.
Very good. But as far as recruiting is concerned, you gave out free tickets with door prizes, and you also gave an incentive to your members to go out and recruit.
Right. We bugged our people to get out there and sell those free tickets.
Good deal. That sounds good. Sell those free tickets. I like that.
I'm Harry Borger from South Central Pennsylvania, and I'd like to ask a question, then I'll tell you why. For my own information, how many of you are conducting Saturday night classes?
One man.
I have a theory. My wife and I have been elected presidents of the Dancers Association in our area. Our association is comprised of about 30 square and round dance clubs. And over the 20-some years I've been calling, I've seen our classes change from a young, family-oriented type group to older people. Over that period of time, the demographics of our country has changed. More and more women are working. I maintain that it's very difficult to have a lady work all day and be interested in coming home and taking care of the home and family and obligating herself to even 20 weeks of weeknight classes. But they are looking for something to do on a Saturday night and will pay a babysitter because they don't have to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock the next morning. So those from our area who they've been hearing this soapbox for a long time, but finally our Dancers Association in Cooperation Association has agreed, if we can work out the details, to have a Saturday night class, and where all of the clubs will work together to try to recruit people for a Saturday night class. And I just have the gut feeling that if we get the place, we're going to get dancers.
Okay, you're saying that there's 2 things as far as recruiting is concerned. One, you feel like most of the, especially the younger families, both partners are working and they're just not going out through the week. They have children, they have homework, babysitters, stuff like that. But you think the night is very effective, and if they'd have a weekend night, they'd go.
I learned to dance on a Saturday night, and that's 25 years ago, and I'm still dancing.
Yeah, hold on, just say,
Just sort of a little hitchhike on that. My largest class is on a Sunday night. Now, the reason for it, we got involved one year with someone who worked in retail industry, where one week they went to work at 9 o'clock and at 5, and they could have come to class. But the next week they worked from like 2 in the afternoon to 9 o'clock at night, and they would be missing every other class. So we got to thinking, well, I couldn't do it on a Saturday night, to be quite frank with you, according to scheduling. So we went to a Sunday night, and I've been doing it now, except for the time of illness, for 25 years. And it is the biggest night we have Sunday, not so much because they still have to get up Monday morning and go to work, but the very fact that the continuity of it fits for a Sunday night, whereby they could absolutely not make it on every Thursday or every Wednesday or every Tuesday night because of fluctuating work schedules. And it's consistently been Sunday night as a good idea. It kind of hitchhikes with yours, not so much for the getting up in the morning, but very fact for the availability of people whose job limitations make it impossible for them to hit the same night every week. And it has worked quite well. I was quite apprehensive of having to leave those Eagles games on a Sunday afternoon to get to class. But it has worked out, and I've been doing it for a long time. And Sunday night is an excellent night, I have no doubt. But what a Saturday night would also be a good night, provided you get the caller with the free time to do it.
While we're on this one subject, one man had a Saturday night class. The rest of you did not. Why not? You're what? You're calling on Saturday nights? Okay, wait a minute. By that you mean you're calling specials? Oh, okay. You're calling regular clubs on Saturday night, and you don't have classes the same night, okay? How many of you call for a regular club on Saturday night? Wow. Okay. Same people. You teach classes through the week if you teach classes. Right? Okay, good point. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Bill Ness. I'm from West Fargo, North Dakota. A couple points on recruiting. One of the things that we are just starting right now is using newcomers lists, and they're available through your local Chamber of Commerce. The utilities companies always keep track of all the new people coming in to town, and generally they turn those lists over to your Chamber of Commerce. So that it could possibly be a very good way to get new people that are coming into the community before they get involved with bowling and all sorts of other things. One quick thing here on demos. We've done just an awful lot of demo dances, and we have found that if we stop in the middle of this dance and show just a few formations such as lines, and then work the people into stars, just a couple different formations like that, and then continue to dance, the people that are watching it, they're going to stand back and say, hey, they're in lines, or wow, I see stars now. And so they start thinking that, I know a little bit about this now already. And it gets them a little more interested while they're watching.
You say take a little more time and narrate what you're doing, sort of.
Right.
Explain to the watchers what you're doing.
A couple formations so they have something to watch for rather than just watching those people out there having fun dancing.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Jerry Helt.
Jerry Helt from Cincinnati, Ohio. Alive and well. Could I ask a question? How many have their literature ready for the upcoming classes? Oh, really? Don't we normally start classes in September? Do you have your literature ready?
Man, we got 5.5 months to start on that, Jerry.
Okay. You were talking about the free ticket idea and the open house and so forth. Suggestion. When you make up that ticket, on the flip side of that ticket, put name, address, phone number. And the door prize idea will get most people to put their name, address, and phone number on the back of that.
Good.
Suggestion. And it works. I speak from experience. Within the coming month, or let's say the next 2 months prior to your graduation of classes or whatever, have an open house. On that open house, pass out the tickets within your class to those people to pass them out to non-square dancing friends to come in and have a party night. And what you're doing, you're creating a mailing list so in September when your class starts, you've got something to start with. You're going to say, well, how do I disrupt that class and bring all those new people in? Suggestion. When you do your class and you have all those non-square dancers there, have them sit out, start your normal class. When your break comes, get all the new people up, do a little business with those folks. They haven't paid anything, so they're not going to beef about it, I don't think. And during the course of the evening, mix the two and do some simple dances. Most of the class people are willing to show off in front of those non-square dancing friends. They want to show them what they have learned, and they say, come on, you can do this. So, again, you're creating that mailing list, so in September, you're ready to send that out. Now, between now and September, that's a long time, as you said. Send those folks a little reminder card about August or July saying the class will start September such and such, and also when those folks leave that dance that night, that open house dance, make sure that they have that literature in their hands or walking out with it, plus sending them some information in August. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Good point.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Joe Frisella, and I'm from Rhode Island. Anybody know where that is?
It's the eastern tip of Texas, isn't it?
Dick Ledger, yeah, that's true. One of the things I can notice very readily while I'm square dancing is who a beginner is. Not by what they do or what they say, is their grip. When they grab you, you know they are holding on to you for dear life because they are frightened. And one of the ways that we've been handling this in Rhode Island, notice I said Rhode Island, it's Rhode Island for those who don't know, is having dances for beginners. And Roger Dufault, there's a caller there, he came up with this, and several people who are teaching classes are having dances for beginners, and this is very successful. They go there with their own peers. They get introduced to a lot of people in the same situation they are, so when they're ready to graduate, they don't just fall into mainstream green and get frightened away from square dancing. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Lois Wolfson from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, number one city to live in.
All right, Lois Wilson with the Chamber of Commerce.
I call one-nighters. Anybody else? I hate that word. I have 8 kids, and they say, "Where are you going, Mother?" "Oh, to a one-nighter."
All right.
Oh, they are fun. I love them. Now, oh, hey, here's the place to get your dancers. Boy, they have fun at one-nighters. I put a sheet of paper on every table and tell them to sign their name and phone number, and that the officers of my club will be calling them to come to a free dance. And 80% of my class students come from my one-nighters. A couple other things. Glenn, I hope that sometimes you take your free day and keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean this, I'm serious, whether it's your livelihood or a part-time caller, square dancing should not be your only priority. It should be your priority.
Wednesday night is my night. Nobody gets Wednesday night. Nobody gets Wednesday night.
Attaboy. Okay. I'm very much into health. In fact, I've got a train as soon as the last meeting's over. I'm going to be riding 1,000 miles in August on my bicycle. Square dancing is not aerobic. It is very good. It's super, but it is not aerobic. And your 120 beats a minute for your heart condition is real good. I can go 200, but I'm in excellent shape. Now, ballroom dancing and square dancing, we burn up approximately 100 calories an hour. You have to use some big muscle portion of your body at the minimum of 20 minutes with your heart rate at least 120 minutes to be aerobic. It's not all that healthy with the yummy, believe me, okay? I stay away from them completely. My club still has them. I have several of my seniors on my diet, Dr. Robert Haas' diet, have them walking. They used to have very high blood pressure. One, Al Pimsner, is now down to 110 over 68 with his diet and with his walking every day. But, I mean, it's good. It's certainly better than sitting, but it is not aerobic. It is healthy. Why all the thing about the class? My dancers have always had a ball in class. They love their class. In fact, when they graduate, it's a letdown. And they're going to keep dancing anyway. I don't understand this big deal about, in the first place, a lot of the callers that I know, if they shorten these lessons to 30 weeks, the callers are going to graduate them in 10 weeks anyway. Thank you.
I'll answer your question. You said, wow, let's think about the class. What our point is, not necessarily everywhere, but in general, the number of people beginning square dancing is down. That's the big thing about the class. That's why we're here. We want to get that number up. How you run your classes and what's successful for you in your classes and in your clubs, that's great, but it's a different subject from here. We want to know how to get people into class to begin with. That's what we're after. Go, sir.
Steve Turney from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I fully agree that a lot of people are turned off by your answer to their question, how long is it going to take me to learn to square dance, if you say, 41 weeks, because that's what CALLERLAB, wants out of us. I don't do that.
You lied to them like the rest of us.
Well, I try to handle it by saying, the first night you come, you're going to learn a few steps, basic, easy steps. The second night, you're going to review those and learn a few more. The third night, you're going to review the first 2 weeks and learn a few more. And then, and you're square dancing. As I said, each night, you're going to learn a couple more steps, and you'll be square dancing every night you come from the beginning. And I said, I've been a square dancer for 13 years, and I'm still learning. It kind of depends on how long you stay in the activity as to how long you learn. I try my best to stay away from the CALLERLAB answer of 41 weeks.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed to tell them that.
Question for you: from ground zero, how many weeks do you teach class to get them through, say, mainstream?
Well, it's about 30 weeks. 30.
Is there anybody in the room that teaches 41 weeks class? Hold up your hand. Bob Worley, young lady up front. We got 4 people. Okay. Most of you teach 30 weeks? Anybody less than 30 weeks for mainstream?
What are we talking about mainstream again?
Sorry?
Are we talking about the basic list of 69 family groups? Or are we talking about their dancing?
I'm talking about mainstream, the definition of the list. Now, I went through this about 3 years ago at CALLERLAB. If everybody calls the list that's called mainstream, that will be the mainstream of square dancing. It is not what we in general normally dance all the time today. We dance mainstream and a little bit of plus. So we have a misnomer there, or we can mess up on the name mainstream. Right now today, mainstream is not the mainstream of dancing. You follow that? You agree with that? Okay. What I was interested in, try to get back on the subject, recruiting now. What I'm interested in is just the number of weeks and what you tell your people to start with.
Right. So you put me down as one more caller who thinks we should have less than 41 weeks. Now, I got a couple of questions for each of your panelists. Buck, I'll start with you. I also live in a pretty small town with 4 clubs, 4 callers, and with about 4 different class nights. Whenever the clubs can get a class. Whenever they can get a class, they're small. 1 square, 2 squares. The largest club has about 3 squares. But I like the idea of other clubs having a central class or schools, you call it, and I'd like to be able to make that work. But one advantage of having different nights in the same area is that everybody should be able to have a night in which they can come. Not everybody can come on Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Saturday night. How do you handle the people or the problem in your area, or the person who says, yeah, I'd like to come and I would, but I just can't go on a Wednesday night because that's my prayer meeting night, or I can't go on Saturday night because that's my bowling night. How do you handle those people? Do they ever get to learn the square dance?
The only way we can possibly handle it is by having a comprehensive list of all the classes in the area, and when you know you're going to lose them because they will not come on your designated night, do your damnedest to find a night that will suit them with somebody else. In other words, we're trying to get them into square dancing. You'd love them in your class. But if not, I always have a very comprehensive list, simply by knowing callers and through our federation, where if they definitely say to me, we can't come Wednesday night, I say, well, now look, here's a Tuesday night, here's a Thursday night, here's a this or that, and try to guide them in some way they're going to get into square dancing.
Okay, thank you. And for the other panelists, you suggested using modern type of music, and I think I know what you're talking about. There are many singing calls that use modern type of music. Does this mean that at your demos you do only singing calls, or do you ever show the audience what patter is? Do you just use singing calls?
Yeah, when I do the demos, I do 1 or 2 patterns. Basically, we just go with the singing calls, music. And the one thing that I definitely do when we're in a demo, I don't care who comes to my demo from a club from the people that just graduated from class, is we show them what we know how to do, not what we don't know how to do. We're up there putting on a show basically for these people, showing them what we can do, and that's, I would say we do very, very little patter, but I do show them patter.
Okay, so you do a little bit of patter. Okay, the only one more question I have, what about the real hot shot square dance couple that you have in your group who are faithful in supporting your efforts and will come out to your demos, but you can't keep them from doing all these unorthodox things while they're dancing? Like they bump their hips and twirl around, and that's the one couple out of the other 3 aren't doing it. They're doing it right, and that one couple kind of, it just don't look very good. How do you hold them down, or can you hold them down?
When we go out to demos, I say to the people, we dance straight. If it's a do-si-do, it's a do-si-do. It's not a Hungarian swing or whatever they call that stupid, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. When I do a club dance, on your head in square dance. If that's the way you want to do it, that's the way you want to do it. When we do a demo, we do it the way it was taught. When I do my class, the same way. I don't care if there's 40 angels there. The angels do it the way it was taught.
I guess you have to, because some people just can't depend on to use good judgment. Thank you.
One of the things that you had said that I wanted to mention, when you're recruiting a new person and you tell them, they say, well, how long is it going to take me to learn? Well, the first question you say, well, how long do you plan on dancing? If you're going to dance for 7 years, then it's going to take you 7 years to square dance, because if you stop learning to square dance, it's going to become boring. If I stop learning how to call, it's going to become boring. That's why we have new calls. That's why we have 4 different programs, because you are going to continue to learn square dancing. That's why. So you're learning square dancing from the time you walk into that door till you decide you don't want to square dance anymore. So it's not important how long it's going to take you to learn how to square dance. We do our lessons in 30 weeks, but that's not important. The important part is how long do you want to be a square dancer. And if you want to be a square dancer for 30 weeks, then that's how long it's going to take you to be a square dancer, basically.
You asked the question before, how do you control some of the dancers? Maybe it comes a little bit with age, I hate to admit it, but my demo dancers, when they come out, no, I will not tolerate short-stop promenades, no swings, hip bumping, or anything like that. I always have a little bit of a 2-minute meeting, and my favorite saying is, dance by the book, and always promenade, when in doubt, swing, and I tell them that they're putting on a show. And they know that I insist on that. If someone acts up into the square, I very often by name right into the pattern. Hey, Joe, cut that out. And I'll keep right on going. And the audience don't know what I've said probably. Hey, they might think, hey, Joe, cut that out. It's another command. But, I mean, I'm actually calling him by name and telling him I'm watching what he's doing. And I have very little trouble. They're very sincere. The people who come out to demos are very sincere. And I never make the thought prevalent that I shouldn't lecture them. I always lecture them before every demo, even if it's only 2 minutes long. One thing I hate is short-stop promenaders, especially in a demo.
We're going to take questions for 10 more minutes, and then we'll have a wrap-up, and that'll wind us up. Go ahead, sir.
We've been talking recruitment, and from the conversations I've gathered so far, we're talking from teenage, middle-aged, semi-retired, and retarded. Why don't we go back to the basics of recruitment in our schools for our young kids? They're still dancing to the old records that were put out 35 years ago. What, all 4 ladies up? No, all 4 gents up. We did an experiment a couple months ago with some 4th graders. In 2 weeks, we taught these kids how to do the grand parades, the teacup chains, the folds, which we can teach most of our dancers to do, and a couple other things, and they put on a couple demonstrations, and they came up to one of our dancers to do it. They brought all their parents with them. We have 32 members signed up for next fall's classes already out of that one demonstration. If we can upgrade these records in these schools, these kids hear these records in these schools, and you mention square dancing to them when they get out to a teenage age, they're going to say, think about it.
That's a very good point. I would like to comment on that, though. My son was in the 5th grade just a few years ago, and his PE teacher called me. She found out I was a square dance caller. Called me, wanted me to come and do a thing for the 5th graders, all of the 5th grade. We're talking about 150 kids, and it was going to be on TV and the whole deal. And I thought it was going to be exactly what this gentleman just said. You know, just they'd been using old records and all this. So we met on the playground, a little tennis court. I had my sound equipment set up, and the TV man was there, and the mayor was there, and all this. The bell rang, and here comes 150 kids jumped on the floor. She put on Gary Shoemaker's Devil, went down to Georgia, and they did it now. So, you know, not all of them are still back there on those old things, but that's a very good point. If, you know, we might make it a little campaign to get some material to our school people in our area. That would be a good point nationally if we could get to education associations. So that's a super good point. Thank you very much. Go ahead, ma'am. Wait. Real quick.
For 7 years, I had a square dance club in an elementary school, and we did these demonstrations, and it does work. But if you think for 1 minute that you're going to get this into the public school system, I have news for you, unless you start with the federal government or at least the governor of the state.
We'll work on that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, my name is Carol Arbett from Drake, Mass. My husband and I are the editors of the New England Square Dance Caller magazine. We have been working very hard on what we believe is absolutely a necessity for our square dance activity, and it is an 800 number. We are working in New England. We are trying to get the organizations, the callers, the round dance cures, and the square dance associations to help us by funding an 800 number for New England that would be housed in the office, our office, where there are people there from 8:30 in the morning until midnight or all night, because we live there too, to answer this phone and give information. We can see, my husband and I can see bumper stickers 10,000 bumper stickers in New England with an 800 number on it. 800 dance for information on square dancing. And that would be just fantastic.
And you're going to keep a list of everybody that's going to have classes, when they start, where
yes,
they start?
Yes, absolutely. We do now. We do now. Yes, we do now.
Good. Great.
But our square dancing is the best kept secret within our activity. We had a fellow that dropped out of one of our clubs and came back and said, came back and said that after he left the club the second night, he never heard another word about square dancing till 5 years later when he came back. He never heard one word mentioned outside. So we have been living in a vacuum.
I'm hearing the same thing. We in general are not putting our word out.
That is correct.
Go ahead.
Having the magazine, we thought of a system by which we took upon ourselves to send a subscription monthly to the local newspapers. All of a sudden, the entertainment editor has been picking up from our magazine square dancers in the area. All of a sudden, they have the bingo nights listed, they have the auctions listed, the flea markets listed, and square dancing listed. They have a 3 or 4 inch column of dances all around our area, whatever area that newspaper covers, which has been great because we've had people say to us, when we say we're in square dancing, "Oh yeah, I've been reading about that. I never knew there was any around." Our same problem once again. We have also taken it upon ourselves to send subscriptions to and talk to some of the clubs in our area into taking a subscription for, which is, $8 a year, and sending a magazine to their local library monthly. That magazine is on their table when I go over and check into it in different libraries. It's out there with Time. It's out there with with Yankee. It's out there with all those magazines that they get. But it has to be done, taken on by a club as a responsibility. A couple of other things that may sound a little different. We had, a few years ago, we had a very large class. And the year before, in watching the demos, I noticed that when our people went out into the audience to get people to come in and make a square with them, they would shy away from them. I suggested something. I asked our club people not to wear square dance clothes. Now, I am a big person who loves to wear square dance clothes, and I wear them to every class. Everything I go to, I wear square dance clothes that is connected with it. They did not wear the square dance clothes. They all wore skirts. They all wore blouses. Some wore slacks. The only way you could tell them from the crowd was their square dance shoes. Nobody else knew them. When I looked around that parking lot, nobody was afraid to get up. Everybody thought they were on the same level, and they were not dancing with a professional.
Very good.
It worked like a charm. We had 6 squares in class that year. Another thing, my husband and I believe that classes start too early. You're competing with every other class that starts in September. And people are not ready for the indoor commitment in September. Mid-October, they're ready. Their grass is all finished for the year. Their camping is done. Everything is now, let's see what we can get into. The college things start, the dancings for the kids. They're trying to get their kids into all kinds of activities. Our square dancing starts. We get them into the gyms. The 3rd week there, we have a 90-degree night. They're dying with the heat. That is our problem there. But I think if we could we're going to try it with one of our clubs this year, starting in maybe mid-October, when everything else is done. We call for a mainstream club. The club has been mainstream for 23 years. We have not been the callers for that club that whole time. They had one other caller. They have 108 active couples, simply because they are a mainstream club. People leave the activity in the fall when their kids get into basketball. They come back in January. The ones in January leave. They have hockey. They come back later on. There's always people that can't make it because they have kids. We have a very young club. And people that have to drop out for one reason or another, sickness or just family problems, parents that become sick, can always come back, and they do. Their list always maintains around between 100 and 110 couples.
Okay, you're talking about your club now. How about recruiting?
Yeah, and, well, the recruiting, of course, was the other thing. But recruiting, we recruited 10 couples that had to stop dancing by sending out letters saying that we are a mainstream club, and remember, you can come back.
Okay.
And they did. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to run out of time before we get everybody up, but we'll take one more. Go ahead, Walt.
All right, Darryl, I'd like to have just a couple of minutes, and I'll try to make it short. One of the things is, we all know, we've been talking here, is that it is the best-kept secret in the world, square dancing. Our Callers Association made up these, and we passed them out at our own expense. It says square dancing is fun. We passed them out to the clubs, got them out in July. The three sources, I want to talk on recruitment. Three sources that we have not touched upon that we use. One is the factories in your area. Two, the organizations in your area. Three, the churches in your area. All of these places, most of them, are looking for a place to have recreation. They are recreation-minded. If you will contact the proper churches, and that is hard to do sometimes, and the factories and the various organizations in your town, whatever they may be looking for a place to have recreation. Send them letters. Once you get a reply from that letter, that person, and you know it takes a person to bring people in, work with that person and he'll bring them on in. It's a big help to your club.
Great.
Thank you.
The man just came in. We're running out of tape. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut it off right there. I know you've been standing there a long time. I'm real sorry. I want to mention, first of all, because several of you mentioned we're not getting our word out, okay? A lot of you may know, you may not know Jerry and Becky Cope, right over here from Cope Crest down in Georgia. They're doing a fantastic job with the Spirit of America. They've got some video cassettes. They are producing a record for national publicity purposes and many other things. You get a chance, you ought to talk to them while we're here this weekend. Okay, real briefly now, I've noted all the things everybody's talked about. We've had some real fine ideas as far as recruiting, and I'd like to clear up the 2 points, like I said, that I got off my questionnaire. Do you people feel like that we're happy with teaching classes for 30 weeks? You think it should be less? Do you want to change the mainstream list? How do we teach less than 30 weeks and maintain the mainstream list? Okay, let me throw one idea at you, because you're going to hear some more before the convention's over. And that is, leave all the lists as they are, but come up with a parallel list. There's several names floating around right now. Several people have come up with these lists. A list of approximately 60 moves, some from mainstream. We'll leave out some of the mainstream. There'll be a few easy plus figures on there. We'll give it a name. We'll teach it in 24 or 25 weeks. Okay? That's this frequency list. I'm asking, does that sound like a good idea to you? Your people that are already dancing, and they're dancing plus or A or whatever, their program shouldn't be interrupted. But of course, if we do these shorter things, we got to provide a place for these people to dance. Anybody have a real quick comment you want to make? Quick, real quick. We're out of tape.
Bob Gordon from New Jersey. I am one of 4 callers in our area who always started lessons in the fall. A couple years ago, I got the idea, I'm not going to fight these guys. I didn't start lessons until January. The people who started in the fall had their friends who they wanted to get involved with the activity. It worked for me for 4 years.
That sounds good. It's a different time. Listen, we want to say thank you very much to Mr. Buckfish and Glenn Matthew for coming and being on the panel with us today. But most of all you nice people that came in and sat with us. Thank you very much. We appreciate your input.